They call me detective. The mask stays on. The truth stays buried. Until cases like this force everything into the light. What I'm about to tell you happened on what should have been the happiest day of two people's lives. Instead, it became a masterclass in psychological manipulation that nearly broke my faith in human nature forever. Before we dive into this twisted tale, remember, there are secret letters hidden throughout this investigation. Find them all, piece together the word, and claim your reward. But be warned, this case will challenge everything you think you know about guilt and innocence. I was just finishing my coffee on a Saturday morning when the call came in. Body found at Riverside Manor, the town's premier wedding venue. Male, mid-20s, deceased in the groom's preparation room. The dispatcher's voice was tight. Nobody wants to work a murder at a wedding. I arrived to find chaos contained behind closed doors. 300 wedding guests sipped champagne in the garden, blissfully unaware that 20 feet away, a young man lay dead. The bride sat in her white dress, mascara streaking down her cheeks, asking if they should cancel. Some things, once started, can't be stopped. Ryan Foster, 27 years old, IT specialist for a major tech firm downtown. He wasn't the groom. That was his older brother Michael, who'd found Ryan's body at 2:47 p.m., 30 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. Ryan lay slumped over a desk in the manor's preparation suite, laptop open, a half-empty glass of champagne beside him. No obvious trauma, no signs of struggle. Just a young man who'd apparently died at his keyboard while the wedding preparations continued around him. The medical examiner's preliminary assessment suggested poisoning, something fast-acting, probably administered in the last hour. The champagne glass tested positive for traces of digitalis, a heart medication that becomes lethal in higher doses. All eyes immediately fell on Derek Mason, the bride's ex-boyfriend. He'd shown up uninvited to the wedding, causing a scene at the reception hall entrance just an hour before Ryan's death. Security had escorted him out, but not before he'd made threats about ruining the wedding and mentioned knowing family secrets that would destroy everyone. Derek had motive. His ex-girlfriend Emma was marrying Michael, and he'd been bitter about the breakup for months. He'd been posting cryptic messages on social media about revenge and justice. He had means. He worked at a veterinary clinic and had access to various medications, including digitalis used for animal heart conditions. Most damning of all, Derek had been seen near the preparation rooms around 2:15 p.m., just 30 minutes before Ryan's estimated time of death. When we tracked him down at a bar downtown, his clothes reeked of alcohol, and he immediately began ranting about the Foster family getting what they deserved. The evidence against Derek was overwhelming. Security footage showed him sneaking back onto the manor grounds through a service entrance at 2:10 p.m. His fingerprints were on the champagne glass, though he claimed he'd grabbed it from a passing waiter earlier, and Ryan must have taken it from him. Derek's phone revealed disturbing search history from the past week. Digitalis overdose symptoms, untraceable poisons, and how long does digitalis take to kill? His veterinary clinic was missing a vial of digitalis solution that Derek had signed out 3 days earlier, claiming it was for a sick horse that never existed. During interrogation, Derek seemed almost proud of what he'd done. He confessed immediately, describing in detail how he'd dissolved the digitalis in champagne, how he'd waited for the perfect moment when Ryan was alone, how he'd watched Ryan drink it. He wanted everyone to know that the Foster family had destroyed his life, so he destroyed theirs. confession was textbook, detailed, consistent, corroborated by evidence. Case closed, but something felt wrong. Derek's confession was too perfect, too detailed for someone who'd been drinking heavily. He knew things about Ryan's final moments that only the killer could know, or someone who'd watched the security footage. More troubling was Ryan's laptop. Our tech team discovered he'd been running sophisticated data recovery software when he died, attempting to restore deleted files from an external drive. The drive itself was missing from the crime scene. I decided to dig deeper into Ryan Foster's life. What I found painted a picture of a man obsessed with digital forensics and data security. His browser history showed months of research into corporate fraud investigation techniques, financial auditing software, and whistleblower protection laws. Ryan's apartment revealed the truth he'd been pursuing. Hidden in his closet was a box containing financial documents, printed emails, and bank statements spanning 2 years. Ryan Foster had been investigating massive embezzlement at his own company. Someone had been siphoning money through fake vendor accounts and phantom employee payments. The evidence pointed to someone with high-level access to the company's financial systems. Someone who could manipulate payroll and vendor databases without detection. Ryan had narrowed it down to 3 suspects, all of whom attended his brother's wedding. The missing external drive contained the final proof: audit logs, database access records, and video surveillance from the office. Ryan had planned to turn over the evidence to the FBI on Monday morning. Someone had killed him to keep that from happening. The embezzler was Michael Foster, Ryan's own brother, the groom. As the company's head of IT security, Michael had unrestricted access to all financial systems. He'd been stealing money for over 2 years, accumulating nearly $500,000 to fund his lavish lifestyle and expensive wedding. Ryan had discovered the theft 3 weeks earlier and confronted Michael privately, giving his brother a chance to confess and make restitution. Instead, Michael had begun planning Ryan's murder, using Derek's obvious hatred and unstable behavior as the perfect cover. Michael had manipulated Derek masterfully. He'd fed Derek information about the wedding, encouraged his ex-boyfriend's paranoid fantasies about the Foster family, and even provided Derek with access to the veterinary clinic where Michael's fiancée worked part-time. Michael had planted the idea of using digitalis, knowing Derek would research it extensively and leave a digital trail. The psychological chess game Michael played was diabolical. He'd spent weeks pushing Derek toward violence, feeding his paranoia through anonymous social media accounts, sending fake messages that made Derek believe Emma still loved him and was trapped in an unwanted marriage. Michael had even arranged for Derek to be at the bar the night before the wedding, where Michael bought him drinks and subtly suggested that Ryan was the real threat to Derek's relationship with Emma. Michael convinced Derek that Ryan had been feeding Emma lies about Derek, poisoning her mind against him. On the wedding day, Michael had Derek's every move choreographed. He'd sent Derek a fake message from Emma's phone, begging him to come to the wedding and rescue her. He'd left the service entrance unlocked, knowing Derek would use it to avoid security. He'd even provided Derek with the champagne glass, pre-dosed with digitalis, telling Derek it was for Emma. Michael's plan had only one weakness. He needed Derek to actually deliver the poison to Ryan. But Derek, despite his threats and anger, couldn't bring himself to directly murder someone. At the last moment, Derek had simply left the champagne glass on the table and walked away. Michael found Derek wandering the grounds, clearly having second thoughts about whatever he'd planned to do. That's when Michael knew he'd have to finish the job himself. He took the poisoned champagne to Ryan personally, claiming it was a peace offering from Derek, who wanted to apologize for the scene earlier. Ryan, focused on his data recovery work and trusting his brother completely, drank the champagne without suspicion. Michael sat with him for the 10 minutes it took the digitalis to stop Ryan's heart, watching his little brother die while pretending to make small talk about the wedding preparations. After Ryan died, Michael had minutes to set up Derek's downfall. He pressed Derek's fingerprints onto the champagne glass, using a technique he'd learned from forensic investigation shows. He planted Derek's phone number in Ryan's call log, making it look like Ryan had called Derek just before his death. Most cleverly, Michael used his IT expertise to hack Derek's social media accounts and plant the incriminating search history about digitalis poisoning. Derek's phone had been unsecured, his passwords laughably weak for someone dating a woman whose ex worked in IT. Michael even manipulated the security footage, using his administrative access to the manor's camera system to ensure Derek appeared in the right places at the right times. Every piece of evidence pointed to Derek, and Derek's mental state made him the perfect patsy. Derek's detailed confession was his undoing and Michael's biggest mistake. Derek described watching Ryan die, seeing the exact moment when Ryan clutched his chest and fell forward onto his keyboard. But Derek had left the preparation room before Ryan even touched the champagne. The only person who could have witnessed Ryan's death was his killer, Michael Foster. When I confronted Derek with this impossibility, his confession crumbled. Under pressure, he admitted that Michael had coached him on what to say, promising that a detailed confession would help Derek get a lighter sentence for attempted murder instead of actual murder. Derek thought he was confessing to a crime he'd only planned, not one he'd actually committed. I found Michael Foster in the manor's bridal suite, comforting his new wife Emma while she cried over Ryan's death. He was playing the grieving brother perfectly, talking about how Ryan would have wanted them to be happy despite this tragedy. When I placed him under arrest for his brother's murder, Michael's mask finally slipped. The psychological pressure of maintaining his act while executing a complex murder plot had pushed him to the breaking point. He began laughing. Not the laughter of innocence, but the brittle, hysterical sound of someone who'd been playing God and finally been caught. Emma collapsed when she realized her new husband had murdered his brother on their wedding day, using her ex-boyfriend as a scapegoat. The guests, still waiting in the garden for a ceremony that would never come, slowly began to understand that they'd witnessed not a wedding, but the final act of a family's destruction. Michael's genius had been in understanding that the most effective way to commit a crime is to make yourself look like the obvious suspect, but only until you can redirect that suspicion onto someone else. He'd deliberately left clues pointing to himself, knowing that Derek's erratic behavior and obvious motive would make him the more compelling suspect. The psychological manipulation went deeper than just framing Derek. Michael had counted on law enforcement's natural tendency to take the path of least resistance, to accept the confession of an unstable ex-boyfriend rather than dig deeper into a grieving brother's alibi. He'd played me as much as he'd played Derek, feeding me information about Derek's threats and suspicious behavior, volunteering details about the security footage that made Derek look guilty. Michael had been the helpful witness in his own crime, guiding the investigation toward the conclusion he wanted. Michael Foster was sentenced to life without parole for the murder of his brother Ryan. The embezzlement charges added another 20 years, though they seemed insignificant compared to fratricide. The stolen money was never fully recovered. Michael had hidden it too well, and took the secret of its location to prison. Derek Mason received psychological treatment and was released after 18 months. The charges were dropped when his involvement was proven to be unwitting manipulation rather than willing participation. He moved across the country, changed his name, and disappeared from public life entirely. Emma Foster had their marriage annulled and now works as an advocate for victims of psychological manipulation. She speaks at conferences about how easy it is to become a pawn in someone else's game without realizing it. This case taught me that the most dangerous criminals aren't the ones who hide their guilt. They're the ones who display it so obviously that you stop looking for the real truth. Michael Foster had committed the perfect crime by making it look imperfect, by pointing every piece of evidence toward himself before redirecting it to his chosen fall guy. The mask I wear protects more than my identity now. It hides the knowledge that evil often comes disguised as the victim, as the helpful witness, as the grieving brother who just wants justice for his murdered sibling. Ryan Foster died trying to expose the truth about financial corruption, never knowing that the real corruption was in his own family, in the brother he trusted enough to drink poisoned champagne from without question. They still call me detective. The mask stays on, and I've learned that sometimes the person crying the loudest about injustice is the one who created the injustice in the first place. Did you find all the hidden letters? Think you solved the puzzle? Check the pinned comment below for complete instructions on how to claim your detective reward. Good luck, investigators. The next case is already waiting on my desk, but this one lingers like the memory of a wedding that became a funeral, and a brother who chose money over family. Some betrayals cut so deep, they change the shape of your soul forever.